Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how I got the half shafts out of the rear 6.3 axle. I wanted to take opportunity now to tell you I'm not certainly no expert, or very kind of, actually to be honest with you, very unfamiliar with the rear end 6.3 particularly. I've done the rear axle bearings on my smaller 108, but haven't gone much further than that. Everything runs fine, so I've kind of left it. But because this car is not familiar to me and I've never driven it because it was dead in the water up in the woods there, I want to go through and check everything, make sure it's all roadworthy, obviously. So first things first, obviously I dropped it out, all the bushings, all the rubber parts, the obvious parts, the boot on the swing axle, I want to replace that. I don't want to use one of those split boots. I want to do a proper one, a full one, a closed one, and go through, replace the bearings, the end seals, probably the pinion seal, and then proceed to disassemble with caution because I don't want to get into something I'm not out of my depth on. So I would love to hear from you guys. I've already heard from a few of you, chat to you on the group, and also spoke to Duke the other day on the phone, and he gave me some pointers, and he sent me this mandrel to be able to knock the carrier pin out, the main pin that is the pivot. So this screws in where the bolt comes out, and then I can give it a good old whacking. And from my understanding, this one he made it's tapered here to be able to set the shims and the various parts back on and then put them through. I'm going to clarify that with him in future phone calls and make sure we get everything right. And also he sent me a little, I don't have it with me here, it's in the other shop, a little T-bar to remove the brake shoes springs, the little tension springs there. So thanks a lot, Duke, for that. Really appreciate it. And the jerky. Let's get on, and I've already taken them out, but I'm gonna, because of the wonders of editing, I'm gonna go reverse in time and show you what I did to remove the drive shaft. So obviously it's a fairly heavy bit of kit, so I made up this framework with a couple of 3 yokes here just to support it, and then another piece of wood on this side underneath the differential housing, and then I cut a hole through this bench here so I could drain the oil out. I did that this morning, so that's been draining all day. So what we're going to do today is remove this brake carriage assembly, the anti-dive assembly I think they refer to it, and take out the rear axle shaft. So let me get the camera set up and I'll show you what we're going to do. Right, first things first, we'll get this brake hose off. That is an 11 and a 14 here. And what I'm doing, I'm keeping everything in bags relevant to the sides that they came off. Some of it doesn't really matter, but just once we get to reassembly again, it makes it that much easier. So there's a little plate there for the hose. Set that on a bench. Now, what I want to do here, these are Allen bolts here, so they're so full of crud. I use this dental pick just to pick out all the hard grease there, because you want to try setting that Allen socket in there and not having a good seat, because you'll end up just rounding something off and then causing a hassle. Oops, I broke the pick there. I've got a few of these things, handy for that. And this socket, or this Allen, is number 6. Now on the 108s you don't have to deal with this thing. You'll have taken the brake shield off and the brake caliper obviously, and then you're pretty much good to go, from memory anyway. I mean, there may be a few other things, but There's me going on about not rounding them. This one ended up rounding after all that. So what I'm going to do, jam a bit of foil in there, kind of build it up a little bit essentially. A nice tight fit in there. Okay, a little delay there because as I say, these little Allen bolts here, kind of not keen on these because they tend to have a tendency to round off if they're stubborn, so you have to make sure they're cleaned out. This back one, lo and behold, rounded. So what I did, and I didn't do it, I forgot to put the camera on. Hopefully this is cooled down. I did the old trick. So that was in there. I got a bolt similar to it, cleaned it up and welded it to the top of that. And that was like in there, and then enabled me to get a wrench on it and pull it out. So that worked pretty good. So we'll get some brand new Allen bolts obviously to get when we replace everything. So yeah, sorry I didn't film that, but yeah, a simple trick really. Make sure the head's all clean. I used a little file, you know, filed it, get as clean as possible, clean up the bolt, put a few tack welds round, and then I heated up a little bit of heating of the cast here to expand the metal, and then it broke free pretty easy. So there you go. Okay, I'm going to take this control lock, this brake arm off of here, get that bolt out of there. So 19mm. Yeah. Okay, so this yoke, we'll just give it a few wraps here. There we go. Take that guy off. There's a couple of guide pins here, you see. So, whoops, there is what I wanted to show you. Now, that is torn up. There's a little thin copper shim in there. There's another one there, see? And another one here. These don't seem as good as the ones on the other side. Then we've got these collars that go around here, plastic collars. These get all replaced. Take those collars off, 4 of those. And then this plastic yoke stuff, which is just don't seem to be in bad shape. Just give that a good clean and I'll see what that's all about. And then we got these rubbers here, and then also it looks like some kind of felt seal put inside this groove. It's like a seal to keep the grease in. Same on this side. These obviously get all replaced. I'll cut that off. That's all, you can see, dried and cracked there. So what's next is to undo these nuts on the backing plate. 13mm nut back on this backing plate. As you can see, I did clean the drive shaft a couple of days ago. I hit it with some degreaser and power washed it, get the worst off. I even took a bit of a steam cleaner to it. I've taken those 6 nuts off. They do have some lock rings on the back there as well that will probably stick there, these little grippy ones, you know. Now, to get this shaft out, you obviously can't just go pulling on it. So I'll show you what I do. So I've got an old wheel, you see, one that you don't care about. Put that on there. I actually cut the tyre off this with a sawzall earlier just so I could, where is it? There we go. Got that all bolted up, and you want a nice heavy mallet, and like I say, you don't want to use a good wheel because you have to give it a few blows, so just give it a few blows. That should pop that shaft out. There we go. There we go. Takes a little beating, so as you can see, you don't want to use a good wheel, do you? So let's undo that. Right, you want a rag. Actually, I'll prop this up so it kind of dumps the oil that way. Alright, there you go. So, and obviously there's the bearing. Call it self-centering bearing, I think. Right at the bottom there. Feels pretty good, but while we're in here, we'll obviously change it. And what I noticed should be, well, from my 280, I don't know if you can see that, should be a paper gasket on there, but I'm not seeing a gasket on there. Huh. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember there being a gasket around there. And I think there's a seal in here as well to seal on the back plate. Yeah, I can feel that. There's a rubber seal there. And then there's this locking ring at the top here with notches in. A few of you have reached out on private messenger and also the group and offered up some advice, which again I really appreciate. I've spoken to Aaron Householder on the 108 group, and also Adam. I believe Adam, you're in England and you worked on a 6.3, and I really appreciate everyone's help. Adam's been helping me and he will be hearing from me again. So let's see now what we have got. So if you're like me, when you go on YouTube and you look at these videos of people doing things, I'm always, I mean, it's wonderfully helpful, obviously, many of them, and it's great stuff. But a lot of times I'm always left wondering, yeah, but what about this? What about that? And that's why that's why I like to go into some detail about all the parts and things like that that have come off the car. Because if you see the way they are, you can see how they operate. And then you can appreciate that, for instance, lubrication, you know. So these are the yolks for the anti-dive on the rear of the 6.3. See, they go like that, okay, when they're on the shaft there. And inside are these shells, these plastic shells. I've cleaned this one up so you can see closer, and they capture like that. They sit in there, right? Now, someone, I think, has shimmed them up with these copper shims. I don't think this is a factory thing. I think someone's cut some, actually looks more like brass, thin brass, to shim them up a bit, because he probably couldn't, he didn't want to buy new ones of these, I guess. But these are still readily available. I've seen them at Niemoller, I think the site is, and also MB Classics. And I think the rebuild kit, from memory, is about $60 each side, and that comes with 2 of these shells, 2 of the rings, which I don't have with me because I cut them off, Okay, so there's 2 rings, one either side. And what I didn't see in the kit, which actually attaches to the axle, is this little felt. This felt seal that goes in a ridge on the inside of the axle and on the outside. So any tips on where I can get those felt strips? They're very simple, just like a little rectangular square thing, you know, felt. So that's those. So as you can see on these yokes, there is the Zerk fitting on the outside here. You can see that. And that pumps grease into this channel. Pumps it round, you see, and then enters these holes, right, and then is sent out with this crisscross pattern inside this shell to spread the grease around. And obviously you haven't got a ton of movement in this. This is probably doing this kind of business, you know, in the car, but that will help spread it out. But definitely a sort of thing that's going to get neglected and dried out over the years. I don't think it's a seizing situation, but it's just going to wear these out, isn't it? All that rubbing, and then this is going to get sloppy on the axle, which is no good. They'll probably eventually start knocking, I guess. So that is what I wanted to show you there. Also, there are these half spacer pieces of plastic that go either side as well, on both sides, and that's like it seems like a little spacer, and so it'll enable the thing to, you know, rock back and forth, and this stops it rubbing, I guess. So that is that. Wanted to show you that. The bolt that gave me some problems, as I say, I just welded in a bolt there, and then I was able to get a 13mm wrench on it and just pull it out, so that wasn't a big deal. We'll get new ones of those. Now this is the driver's side axle that we've just removed. Okay, and hopefully you can see there's the locking nut at the bottom there. Let me zoom in. Okay, there's a locking nut right at the bottom there, you see, and it's got a notch out of it. And what there is underneath there is this shim, right? And it's got a flat side to it. Where is it? There's a flat side there, right? So it locks it, and then you pin that bit of metal over. It goes into the notch. So it locks that nut, that holding nut there. So now what I know is I've already done one. This whole nut was loose actually, and this one feels a little loose on there. Can't really see it on camera, but it's like a little bit loose, so obviously that's no good. And the bearing on this side feels a little bit notchy, like there's a kind of a flat spot on it or something. And this is a little different on the 6.3, and again I'd love you to chime in on the comment section. This, from my understanding, what they call self-centering bearings, correct me if I'm wrong, but on the 280, the 6-cylinder, same kind of setup, but this was a fixed bearing. It didn't do this business, so love to know why that does that. Obviously I'll get the correct ones for the 6.3 if that's needed on this. So what we're going to do, we're going to knock that little piece of metal down to be able to release this this nut, holding nut, so we can pull the bearing off. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'll move the camera a sec. So I want to get it cleaned up a little bit, so just to lay a bit of brake stuff on here, some brake cleaner, get some of this gunk out of the way. Right, let's see if I can do it in here, because I don't want to go in the other room because the wife's clearing up the other side of the workshop, and she's made a mess of the bench. And anyway, let's see what we can do. So let's my punch. There's a little, like I say, tab there. We get a flat bladed screwdriver behind that tab. I'm not bothered if I hit the bearing because we're going to be replacing that. So let's just get behind that. Pin that down. hopefully, so we don't have to go in the other room, we can knock this nut off. Now there is a special wrench, it's like a ring wrench with 2 pins that you can undo it with, but I haven't got one of those. So what we're going to do is just tap this around with a flat bladed screwdriver or my punch here to undo it, and then we'll figure out when we go to put it on what's the best way. Or I might invest in a tool. So hopefully I won't have to go in the other room. That got it? Yeah, that's got it. Unscrew that guy. Get that one off. Get this guy off. This little flat shim here. Like I say, I'm not bothered about damaging the bearing because I am going to replace everything. Get that out. Now you can see this has got a flat spot on it to stop it spinning around. Little flat spot there on one side of the shaft. So obviously these get replaced. So does this nut actually, I believe. I think that comes in a kit. So now I'll show you how I got the bearing off. Okay, this is a kit I got. It's just a cheap kit, you know, you can get these online. I think I might have picked this up at Harbour Freight or something. Like I say, I'm not doing this all the time, so I'm not going to spend a lot of money on this kind of thing. It's got these 2 collars here, 2 collar sets, series of bars that can be stacked to get you more reach, but obviously none of this is going to reach the whole length of the shaft, right? But I'll show you what I come up with. So we're using this one, alright? So let's go and put that on there, alright? I'll get the camera on the tripod. We're going to use this collar. I say, if you're going to do this, I wouldn't go spending a lot of money on these things because, you know, how often are you going to do this, really? Professional, obviously a different story, isn't it? You know, if he's using it every day, you want to say it real high quality, but this is not, only got to do this one job, so I get it on there, just nip that up, just underneath the bearing there. So obviously we haven't got anywhere near the length on those little diddy bars that they gave us from in the box there. So all I did, I went to the local hardware store. Let me back up. I went to the local hardware store and bought some 3/8 rod, threaded rod, right? And keep the washer on there. Thread those guys in. Okay, so this shaft is longer than the other one, so I'm going to just put these short extensions on. I got it around the wrong way earlier, so then that screws into there. So depending on how long a rod you get, you can exert force wherever. So we'll get that up like that, you see. 2 nuts on. Obviously you can go to the machine shop and have them pull them if that's what you want to do and you don't want to bother with this, but I like to do it myself, as I'm sure you're aware by now. Get that up there, lock all that in. There's a little hole at the top of it to enable this bolt to recess in. Okay, we'll just get this set up correctly, balanced. So you want it balanced so you can hold on to those bolts as well. About right. So electric 17mm at the top, and then you can just watch the bearing. Shouldn't take a great deal of force to get that off. Alright, touching socket. There you go. That couldn't be easier, could it really? Take all that off. Okay. Feels a little notchy to me. Kind of a little dry, a little notchy, but anyway, we're replacing them. So yeah, once again, if anyone knows what's the reason for these type of bearings in the 6.3, let me know, instead of the regular solid ones like in my 108 6-cylinder. So then this plate has, take this off, this brake backing plate has a seal pressed into here. Okay, that's going to need replacing, and that's kind of it really. So, and there's just the shaft on its own. So I'll clean all this up, and I'll clean all this and get all the gunk off, and I'll probably, why not just throw it in the chromate tank, make all that look new again, shall we? So anyway, as I say, I can't show you putting the bearing back on because I haven't ordered the bearings yet, because I want to hear from you, you know, the reason behind those, what they call self-centering bearings, I think that's the terminology, and get those ordered up, all the correct seals, get the backing plates re-chromated. I can do that down at the shop, that won't take long. That's kind of a fun job, that is. And the splines on the shaft look really good, and then we can go on to the next stage, is removing that axle tube, checking that slip joint there, the infamous slip joint that apparently, I talked to Aaron and others and said a lot of the time they give some problems, and a lot of them fail because of the torque. But as we've deduced, this rear end, I believe, is a replacement rear end, and I don't believe it's a limited slip rear end. So that being said, fingers crossed, I've looked up the shaft there and I can see the slip joints flop down in there, and so fingers crossed there's no apparent damage to that. Duke said, you know, normally the cracks are pretty obvious if it's damaged and needs replacing, and they don't give those away, I can tell you. I think Aaron said they're about $1,200 for one of those, but if that's the case, then that is what will have to happen. As far as testing the pinion and the backlash, we're not at that stage yet. Once we open that thing up, I'll clean the ring gear up, and from my understanding I can put some of that gear paste on and test the contact, see if it's got nice contact on the pinion gear, and that will be it really. And then we've got all the bushings to order. I've checked in various sites, Mola and MP Classics. The rear bushings on the thrust arm, I think they call it, the one that the big arm that goes forward, the rear bushing is a little different on the 108. It's just one solid bushing with threads in both sides. The 108 is different. I'm not sure why they did that, whether it's something to do with this, you know, the strength of the spring pushing down, reinforced or whatever on the 108s. But now I've done a little research. I haven't seen too much or anything actually on the differential of a Mercedes, but obviously you've got your pinion gear in the center here, okay, running this way, okay, lengthwise, and then you've got a ring gear inside here, and this pinion gear has the bearings, name escapes me right now, you know, the tapered bearings I think they're called, and what I understand, the preload of the tapered bearings has to be set first, okay, before the backlash. So the preload has to be set. Again, that I believe is done with shims on the pinion gear, but please let me know how that's done, and also any tips that you may have. Varying shims to enable the preload of those bearings, and then the backlash, essentially the distance that the ring gear is to the pinion gear to adjust the backlash. Obviously you don't want too much backlash, otherwise there'll be a lot of clunking. You know, when you're accelerating and slowing it down, there'll be clunk, clunk, clunk. And obviously if there's no backlash, well, I would think the gears would heat up and expand and start causing a lot of damage in there, broken teeth and what have you. So that's got to be right, or whining or something of that nature. So that needs to be set, and again, that is all new to me on how that's done. I believe it's done with shims on this, and yeah, so we're getting there. It's kind of fun really, isn't it? Okay, and also there's a series of, I believe this is a rubber bushing underneath this metal sleeve here. There's various rings in here. This is a nut on the end here with a little circlip that holds that. That needs undoing, and that's what that rod is for. Okay, so this nut comes off. Let me see. This rod will screw into where that bolt comes in, and then I can hit the end and drive that pin straight out. But that's for another day. Okay, one other thing here. This is obviously the axle tube on the swing side, and this is the inner seal that will need replacing as well, along with the outer seal on the back plate and the bearing. And then there should be a paper gasket, which, like I say, this doesn't seem to have, unless that's it there, I don't think so, but it doesn't seem to have had a paper gasket put on, which is a little unusual. But anyway, that's one more thing. Like I say, this is kind of a learning thing for me, and I hope you're enjoying the breakdown of this rear axle. Yeah, please leave a comment below and like and share if you like what you see, that is, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, all right, take care guys, bye bye.